So they're rolling off that way. So let's go right about here and here. So they're all running that way. So I'm probably better off right here somewhere. And here comes the rain. Here comes the fucking rain. Should I stay out and about? I don't know. I'll try to keep it running, but it looks like it's gonna rain on me now. fucking awesome, man. It's fucking awesome. You see. And this, what I'm showing you now, is why my YouTube channel gets shut down. Nothing to do with the constitutional bullshit stories that you guys are all fucking spouting out of your mouths, because that shit is just another distraction from reality. It really is. Sorry, guys, it is. I know that you think that you're doing something good, and you actually are, even in my opinion, but you could be doing something much better. Go show everybody the true creator. Show everybody the true creator. You guys got the subscribers. You got enough people watching your channels that you could show them this, and it would be all over. All the other fucking arguments would all be all done. Needs to happen. They're all coming this way, so if I stay somewhere around here, it should be good. It's unbelievable. Fucking eyes are fucking grabbing onto all of it. Red filter, just took it off the other camera. I don't know if I should leave it on though. Man, go get the green filter, just leave the bitch off. So talking about my experiences over the years and stuff, I've been thinking about all these law enforcement stories that I have because I do have quite a bit of them. So I'm going to talk about another one real quick, and then the video will probably get deleted, and I'll have to try to remember to talk about it again later. So, anyways, timeline. It was about 25 years ago. Wow, time fucking flies, man. So about 25 years ago, maybe 20 years ago. Let me see. I met her. I'm trying to think of the girl I was with. I met her when I was 27, 28, probably something like that. So yeah, so probably 23 years ago, maybe somewhere around that vicinity. But anyways, I was with this dating this girl Hillary, and her and I were splitting up. I was always off and on with all my girlfriends over the years, but her and I at that time were splitting up, and I needed a place to stay for a little while until I figured out where I was going. So I looked in the paper or on Craigslist or wherever, and I found this guy renting in-law units. He had turned his garage into in-law apartments, and he shows a picture of the house and the ad and stuff like that, but there were no pictures of the units. I just figured it was a unit. He said they were small. I get that. But then what it turned out to be when you got there was just rooms in a large garage. So he had a large, probably a 4-bay garage, and it was the entire size of his house, all underneath the house, four bays. And what he did was he divided them all up. Real weird, very uncomfortable feeling. Small little hallways, totally against fire department regulations. It was a total fuck show. No windows, nothing. They were like little jail cells. That's what they were like. I swear to you, they were just little fucking jail cells. Pretty long. I'd say probably 11, 12 feet long each one, but very narrow. Feeling very strange because they were so narrow. You couldn't fit your bed and your bureau, and I couldn't bring any furniture. You know what I mean? So because there was no room to put anything because of the setup. It wasn't a perfect square. He would have been better off doing 8 by 9 rooms or something like that rather than these 11 foot by, I guess, 4.5 feet wide or something like that. It was just stupid. And then when you open the door and everything like that, there's no windows and it's musty. And it was just, it was nice. Don't get me wrong, but it just smelled musty because it was a garage and because he closed it all in with no ventilation and no windows. So of course it's going to be fucking musty. So anyways, so I went and met the dude, looked at it. I didn't really have any choice. I couldn't look around, and I needed to get out of the situation I was in. So I said, "Fuck it, I'll take it." And if I remember correct, it's all those years ago. I think it was $75 a week or something like that. It wasn't much. Rents were still pretty reasonable back then. Maybe it was 150 a week. Could have been 150 a week. But anyways, whatever the amount was. So anyway, I gave him a deposit. He wanted first, last, and security, right? And then so I gave him that, and I think he even wanted extra security or something like that. So so I took the room. No application, no contract. You come and go as you want, and you can move out whenever you're ready, kind of thing, kind of like a hotel type thing, right? And I knew other places that did something similar to what this guy was doing, but man, he was fucking weird. So when I first met him, he he had to tell me he bragged about being a cop. Bragged meaning that's all he talked about was how he's this tough cop and he's got a bad reputation and no one fucks with him because he's a tough cop and all this shit. And then I got some more of the story out of him. He was on his third mail order bride, and this particular one happened to be Brazilian. I think the one before was Brazilian. Knockout. The girl was a fucking knockout. Whatever, and so you get the threats. You get the threats about looking at his wife and all this kind of shit. I'm like, dude, I fucking got girlfriends. I don't need to be hitting on your fucking wife, I'm just saying. She's gorgeous. I said, she is gorgeous, but I mean, what do you do this with everybody? You accuse everybody of wanting your wife when they go to move in? I just have to sit down the ground rules. I said, well, that's kind of, goes without saying. You don't try to fuck people's wives. The reason why he thought that way is because all his fucking partners were all fucking each other's wives. He couldn't bring any of his friends home from the forest because they would have been trying to fuck his wife if they weren't already, because they might have been. Okay, so she turns out to be, the wife turns out to be very flirtatious, throwing all her stuff around all over the place, meaning her tits and her ass and everything, throwing it all over the place. It looked great. It was amazing stuff. But the problem is that she's married, and I had no interest. I was a decent looking guy. I was making money. I didn't need to, bow down to a big fight and having some crazy cop chase me around. So it all kind of goes without saying, really. But anyways, as I got to know them throughout the first week I was there, hated being there, hated sleeping there. It was so uncomfortable because of the shape of the room. Very bad feng shui. So upstairs and the rest of the house, very Guido. From the outside, not too bad, but when you went inside his house, I've only been in a few houses like that in my life. Several of them were multimillionaires. So those multimillionaires had marble floor, very high end shit. They had cabinets that got delivered one day. This guy I knew that he was an airplane pilot. Big money he was making, and he was a multimillionaire. I don't know if his family business was airlines. I don't know. He was a nice guy though. He was very down to earth, nice guy. And that dude's house, I mean, one of his cabinets was like $25,000 for a clothing cabinet. Marble fucking furniture. It was unbelievable, the shit that I seen. Okay, so in other words, when I seen Guido's house looked like a cheap airport. He so he was trying to do with 25 to $50,000 at that time what it would have costed millions of dollars to do. He was trying to impress the hell out of anybody that walked in. So he had these, I don't know who the fuck went and designed this house for him, but it was fucking stupid. The carpeting had like racing stripes going through the carpet, and the carpet ran up onto the sides of the walls, and all kinds of weird shit going through the room, and these really high angled ceilings that never touched on anything. They all went against each other. Again, the feng shui was way the fuck off in this guy's house, but way to each their own, right? But you could see what his goal was, to be something that he was not. And then throughout that first week that I was there, I had to keep hearing all his stories, most likely to threaten me about, trying to bang his wife or whatever. But the point it's just ridiculous. I mean, the whole fucking week was stories about, oh yeah, he took me out for dinner and we were coming out. The wife's telling me, and um, some guys were looking at me or some stupid story like this, right? It's another jealousy story, which I don't even know because I wasn't there, but whatever. Point being that he goes and says something to these two guys, tells them off, tells them to go fuck themselves and I'll kick your ass and all this shit. So the two dudes, of course, are like, what are you talking about? We're not fucking looking at your girl, or whatever they've said in defense. Maybe they were, but she didn't say nothing about it. She didn't say like they mouthed off to him and said fuck you or anything like that. That wasn't part of the story. So as I'm putting the story together, I'm seeing a picture of this guy's a fucking tyrant. He's just going around being a tyrannic motherfucker, man. And so I can do this. So over here too, I guess. Get this fucking thing back up. So anyways, he tells me that um her and him, they're both telling me the story, but I was mostly taking her opinion on everything. He was just chiming in here and there with, I would have kicked their fucking asses and all this kind of stuff. But if they would have mouthed off to me, I would have killed them and all this kind of stuff. But anyways, most of their battles, just like that story there, were ended by her or him explaining that he's a cop. because whenever he didn't have any badge with him, he didn't have a gun with him, he didn't have a billy club with him, he didn't have pepper spray or taser or any of that. They didn't even have tasers back then, but he didn't have anything with him. So he was just out for dinner with his wife and maybe drinks or whatever, because this happened outside of a restaurant, not outside of a bar at 3 in the morning. This was outside of a restaurant that I'm sure served drinks too, but whatever. So, anyways, it got really apparent just how fucking tyrannic this guy was. It was one story after another about him getting into fights in public and intimidating everybody with his badge that a lot of times he didn't even have on him. He could have been a fucking security guard, really, for what anybody knew. So, those two particular guys, though, that particular story of them coming out of the restaurant, those two guys did eventually say fuck you, get the fuck out of here, you got no business even talking to us, you're a weirdo, and whatever they told him. She didn't tell me that, I'm just assuming they said that. She was actually on his side, and she was bragging about how it's amazing how everybody bows down to him whenever he tells them that he's a cop. Oh yeah, every time we get into any kind of shit and anybody messes with us, then he just tells them, I'm a cop and I'll fucking drag you in and I'll make your life a living hell and blah, blah, blah. Because that's what he did to me when I took the unit. When I took the unit, gave me the same lecture. If you fuck with me, if anybody here, they all know, if you fuck with me at all and go against any of my rules, right? It was fucking crazy. I should have probably walked away, but I figured, you know what? I'm only going to be here a night or two a week. So it's not even a big deal. I'm going to come here and sleep for 1 or 2 nights a week. And then the rest of the time, I was staying with different girlfriends and shit at the time. So, so it didn't really matter. And then I was trying to decide what I was going to do. Was I going to move back to Mass? Was I going to move back to Rhode Island? And I was trying to make decisions. This was in Connecticut. I was living in Connecticut at the time. So, anyways, about 3, 4 weeks went by. And out of that 3, 4 weeks, I really only stayed there the first week. The rest of the 3, 4 weeks that I was there, I wasn't even really there. I came in, got something, didn't even take a shower because the shower, that was another thing. Shared bathroom and shower with the other 5 units or 6 units, whatever there was. I never even got to meet any of the other people that rented the other units. Didn't even get to even see them or talk to them that I can think of. No, I didn't. Maybe I seen them because I seem to have recollection of a couple dudes in Toyotas and stuff like that because they were driving newer cars than I was and that kind of shit. But otherwise, never really got to talk to anybody else except for him and his wife, the cop and his wife. And then anyway, so a few weeks goes by. I decide, you know what? I don't like these people. I'm gonna get the fuck out of here. So I packed up my shit one night. I added up whatever I still owed him. I think it was like 100 something. That's why I'm thinking the rent was 150 because I seem to remember leaving him 150 bucks, and I was only there 4 weeks maximum, and I gave him first, last, and security by week per week. So therefore, I only owed him $150. So anyway, so I took my shit, I left, and I left the money hidden for him. I put it, I forget where, under the mat. You know, it's 20 something years ago. Since I'm talking about cop stuff, I figured I'd tell the story. Um, so, anyways, I leave the money hidden for him where he could find it, and I didn't know who else, was going to be around, so I didn't want to leave it right on the bureau or anything, because then he could deny that I even left it, right? Whatever. So I said, I'll hide it. So I hid it under the mat. I never called him. I just figured I'd call him, whatever. I was getting late or whatever. I was having a good time for the weekend, and he had called me. Now back then there was no cell phones. Remember, there was no cell phones yet, so it was pagers and landlines. So he was paging me, but I never paid attention to it. I was probably drunk and horny and whatever, doing my own thing. So it was no big deal to me. The rent wasn't due until, the following, till after the weekend. I was supposed to give him, usually he wants his rent by Sunday or whatever it was, so to start the new week, starting the new week on Monday. So as long as he had the rent in his hand by Monday morning, he should have been fine. But he didn't. He freaked out. So he didn't see me on Saturday. He didn't see me on Sunday, so he starts freaking out right away on Saturday. Hey, we didn't see you come in and out. Usually you come in and out, even if you're not staying overnight. Usually you're. So that means he's watching my every fucking move to see when I'm coming in and out of the house. There were no cameras back then. No one was using cameras at that time. House cameras. And so that means his wife was running to him every time she heard any of us, the tenants, move in and out. So he paged me, and back then you could leave messages on the pagers. And I think I even left him on my girlfriend's home phone or something too, because I remember him. I was so pissed because he started leaving all these nasty messages. Hey man, I'll tell you what, the fucking guy right away, like the first he didn't say, hey Mike, just wanted to check on you. I wanted to collect the rent from you before Monday, and we're going away for the weekend. Nothing calm, nothing rational. No, right away, first message. Hey man, just want you to know, other people that have tried this shit on me, they didn't work out too fucking good for them. Starts reading me off a lot of my personal information, plate number, girlfriend's addresses, family members, where my family lives in Massachusetts, all this fucking weird shit, right? But I didn't get it right away. I didn't get it until like, so he was burning up every time I wasn't getting back to him. Over $150? You gotta be fucking kidding me. Never went down and looked in the room to see that I took all my shit out. Didn't know. So when I got all the messages by Sunday, I was like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. I'm not calling this fucking prick back. I'm gonna just leave him alone and let him stew for another night. So Monday morning, I called him, and before he fucking, because he was ready to start yelling and screaming at me. And I said, hey man, I got all your messages and stuff like that. He said, so I take it you never went into the room and seen that because that was another message. One of the other messages was, your fucking shit is already out on the street. You're fucking done. You come around here, I'm going to arrest you. All this kind of shit. It wasn't even Monday morning yet. So over the weekend, all these crazy messages. So as soon as he picked up the phone, hey, maybe we had caller ID at that time, because he was going to start yelling right away. And I said, whoa, hey, man. I said, listen, you obviously did not go, all your shit is on the curb. I said, no, it's not. I took all my shit. I already moved out. I said, I left you a note saying thank you, and I left you your fucking money. Fucking does. So he's like fucking silent. He's trying to think about what he just did, and all the shit that he just fucking said over the weekend is all coming to him. He should have apologized at that point, but he didn't. Too much ego. Too much ego. So as he continues bitching at me and trying to blame me for his actions of being such an asshole, he doesn't talk about himself being an asshole. He just says, well, hey man, that's not right. You should have called me and told me what was going on. I'm like, what are you, my fucking father, dude? Just because you're a fucking cop, you're not my father. And even my father would never do that. Since I was 12 years old, my father didn't tell me what to do. What the fuck is wrong with you, So the wife came down. She got into it. I can hear her in the background, bitching and moaning. He's not telling her that I left the money yet. So she's yelling in the background. You don't know who you're fucking with. He'll fucking nail your ass to the wall and all this shit. And I'm like, you gotta be fucking, this is ridiculous. So I'm like, whatever his name was, I don't even remember, Jim or Joe or whatever. I'm like, Joe, go tell your fucking wife that I left the money. And then finally he says, you said that several times, but you still haven't told me where it is. I said, dude, you already told me that you left all my shit out on the curb, and you just said it again now. So that means that all weekend you never even went and looked in the room. It's an apartment. I said, it's a fucking room, dude. And you never even went and looked in there. You never went and looked in the room, because obviously if you did, you would have seen all my shit was gone. Then your message should have been, hey, you owe me $150. And then I would have said, yeah, I left it for you under the mat. Nothing, no apology, nothing. Hangs up the fucking phone on me, never hear from him again. Unfucking believable. So that's just one of my many, many, many stories that I got about that kind of shit. I'm gonna probably go get a green filter. All right, I got another one. Gotta try to get it out quick though, because I gotta do some shit. Okay, this one goes way back. So I was 21, 22. I'm getting there. Bad memory. 22. Yeah. So 24. I was about 24 years old. So, anyways, I was living in Holyoke, Mass, and I was down the hill, Maple Street, I believe is the name of the street. So I was living down there in a 6 or an 8 unit home. It had 8 apartments in it. The landlord's name was Joe. And everybody in the building, we were all related, family and friends. So I was living in one unit, my sister was living in another unit, my cousin Alethea was living in another unit, and so on. And everyone else in there we were related to or friends with, right? So, anyways, a cop moved in across the street in a building across the street, which was like a 30 unit complex, apartment building, I should say. And anyways, the cop moved in. I knew he was there. 6 months or whatever went by, and I hardly ever seen him, but I knew he was living there. I heard some stories that he was hot on my cousin Alethea, and I'm just explaining this part of the story because you'll know where the confusion came in the middle of the story when I tell you the rest of it. So, anyways, so that was one thing that was going on, was that me and my cousin Alethea lived in the same building, so we would be coming out the same door. He assumed that my cousin Alethea and I were an item, and he wanted to hit on my cousin Alethea, thinking it was my wife, right? Little did I even know this guy. I didn't even know him, nothing. I used to see him once in a while, but I heard all the stories. His window was across from Alethea's window, so he used to make hand signals to her, probably jerked off at each other and masturbated at each other through the windows or something. I don't know. She was pretty perverted too, so who knows what they were doing. But the point is that he misunderstood because he never talked to her. He just did all this weird shit window to window, and then he told other friends that he had the hots for this girl that lived across from him. So he got some information on her, got her name and that kind of stuff, but he never just went out to her when she was going to her car and said, "Hey, you want to get together?" You know what I mean? Fucking weirdos, man. Because he figured she was married. But I didn't know any of this was even going on in the background at the time. I was just going back and forth to work at the time and doing my own thing with my girlfriends and stuff. But he didn't know that because we are both going into the same house. So, anyways, so I don't know what made him assume. I mean, maybe he saw me give my cousin a hug one time leaving or something. Another thing that could have happened is I bought a car off my cousin. My cousin Alethea sold me her Firebird. So it could have been that. I just thought of that at this very moment after all these years. That could have been another thing that made him believe that. All right, so at the same time that that was going on, up at Magna Buick up the hill was this very unattractive, very weathered young woman in her like 30s, but she looked like she was in her 70s or 80s because she was tanning so much. And at the time we all knew her, she was still tanning. And she was one of these ones that she always had a mini skirt on, one of those tight, and she didn't have a great body or nothing, just straight legs, not really big on up top, nothing like that. There was nothing. But anytime, at least when you're a man, anyways, anytime you see something in the miniskirt, you're gonna look, right? So everybody that she used to stand outside and smoke, and as a matter of fact, there was a transvestite that lived in Holyoke that was the same thing. You get down the street, you're like, oh, what's this? What's this? And then you get there and you're like, oh, it's that fucking dude, you know? So Anyways, so at the same time that that girl was working at Magna Buick, I had friends who were telling me, when you get up close to that girl, she looks really rough. So I never got up close to her. It was always drive-bys. And a couple times, so in other words, you're trying to stare at her when you're driving by because you're like, what are they talking about? It looks good from here, you know? And then as you get closer, you're kind of staring at her. She used to smoke cigarettes outside in front. You could do that back then. And so, of course, she was grabbing all the attention from the drive-bys. And then anybody that went into Magna Buick to see her was going to say, holy shit, man, that was a whole fucking waste of time. So, anyways, so one day I'm driving down the street and the cop that lived next door to me pulls me over. So at that time, I was driving one of my favorite vehicles I ever owned. I was so pissed this happened. So it was a 77 Dodge Ram Charger convertible. And anybody knows that truck, that vehicle, it's banging. It is a nice fucking, I want one again and I don't have the money to get one. They're really nice. It was my all-time favorite vehicle with all the vehicles I've owned in my life. That was my favorite. Anyways, I'm driving down the street. I sold the vehicle that day. It was going to be sold. The dude was meeting me with the cash later that day, right? The reason why I sold it, the truck of love of my life, was because I got a house. I got approved for a mortgage for a house in Springfield. That was also going to be closing within the next day or two of all this shit that happened. So, anyways, I'm driving by Magna Buick in my truck, top down, and I see the cop talking to the ugly broad at Magna in a nice skirt. So I drive by and I notice they're both staring at me as I drive by. Well, he was hitting on her. I didn't know. He was been hitting on her for like months. I found this out later because once I got arrested by them is the long and the short of the story. So he pulls me over. He starts yelling and screaming at me that I did a dine and dash at Denny's. And I'm telling them, there's no fuck. I don't do dines and dashes. Even if I'm all fucked up, my friends would pay for it. If I was so drunk that I couldn't comprehend paying my bill, then my friends that I was with would pay my bill. So no, I never did a dine and dash. You're full of shit. And I didn't say it like that, of course, because I was scared because he had me on other shit when he pulled me over. Because the truck was selling that day, I let the insurance expire. So when the insurance expires in Massachusetts, then your registration is no good. It's not like other states. At least back then, that's the way they did it, or at least that's what he claimed. So, because the car was registered, but anyways, so he ended up taking me away in cuffs, puts me in jail for the night. I think it was even a weekend. I think I got stuck in there all fucking weekend. So when I got out, and on Monday or whatever it was, and I finally got the court and everything. I started making phone calls once I got out, and I found out who the guy was, and all this. He was a fucking rogue cop. He was a fucking nut job. Everybody on the force knew he was fucking nuts. He already had so many things against him, so many complaints, false arrests, all this kind of shit. Right? This was the Holyoke Police Force at the time. And the reason why I found out all that information because we have friends and family on the force at that time. So lots of them. I grew up with them in school and stuff. So even the ones that I wasn't friendly with, they didn't like me. They still were respectful, and they would still, not go along with something another fellow cop doing something like that to someone, even though they didn't like me. They still would not watch that happen, and they didn't. So they actually, thankfully, the other cops that are good cops, they got together and they told him he better go in and tell the judge, drop the fucking thing. Not because they liked me, but just because they knew he was fucked up. He was doing fucked up shit in the name of their police force. Now that says a lot on both ends. That means that good cops got rid of a bad cop fairly quickly. I think he was only on the force for a few years at that time. He made it a few years on the Holyoke Police Force. And he, as far as I know, at that time, he did not get thrown off the force, but he definitely got reprimanded and he definitely got put in his place by his peers. That doesn't always happen. I'm not seeing it happen with any of the auditors. The auditors are all getting fucked. So I'm not even putting a filter on right now because the imagery is really good. I don't want to ruin the crisp, clear imagery. So I'm just going to let it keep rolling through, and I'll be back.